everybody, and welcome to episode 82 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger, and welcome to everyone today. I just got back from teaching at the Brookings, South Dakota Knitters Guild, so hi to all those ladies who came to my sweater workshop. That was an event that was scheduled for June of a year ago, and 2020, and got canceled due to COVID, and we finally got it back on the books. So I drove to Sioux Falls on Thursday evening, spent time with my parents on Friday, went to lunch and got to see my dad, who had his birthday in September. He turned 87, but he had gotten a cold, and we had wanted to go down and see if we couldn't go out to dinner with them, but we hadn't been able to, so it was really nice to catch up. Hi to my brother Jeff and his wife Sherry. We did see them on Friday night, which was really nice of them to meet with us, and then I had lunch with my sister-in-law Jenny on Friday with her sister Maggie. So it was like a one-day conglomeration of seeing as many people in my family as I could. And then I drove up to Brookings, which is about an hour, not quite. And then I taught the sweater workshop for 3 hours. And then I went out to lunch with all those ladies. And then I drove back. So when I got back here last night, I was whooped. I was really tired. I haven't done the sweater workshop in a while. And I have to haul all the boxes of sweaters, suitcases full, and all the samples from the Minnesota 52 book and the Knit Cahoots book. And they helped me haul it all in, but we had to go down a long hallway and into the basement, and then everybody had to help me haul it all back out. And by the time I got in the car, because I try on almost 60 sweaters during class, I drove home and I got in the door, and my husband was kind of looking at me like, could we go out for supper? And I was like, I just want to lay on the bed. Could I just lay on the bed for a minute? So I showered. Then, of course, you feel better. And so we went out and grabbed a bite to eat, and yeah. Now Thursday I leave for the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. I'm a little nervous, stressed, anxious about getting everything done I need to get done before I go. Mostly because I have some appointments this week. And I think I'm going to have to call and cancel because I'm seeing my gastroenterologist, who I need to see, right? That's super important. I have yet to see her other than at a procedure. The medications are helping. It is getting better. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now until I see her. I'm still not well in the mornings, but it's getting better. And then I have a dentist appointment. I have book club. I have a mental health checkup appointment. So yeah, and then I need to get my packing done, my nails done. I am taking all the Knitwords samples with me. The Knitwords books have been shipped. Oh, I got new cards printed to hand out. Let me grab it. It's way over here at Rhinebeck. So I had little cards printed to hand out to people who are walking by. I put 3 of my top 5 patterns on the front. So the Hi-Ho shawl, the Knitting at the Library cowl, and the plaid blanket. And then on the front side it says, need a teacher? www.irockknits.com. Need a designer? Cori@irockknits.com. Email. Need knitting inspiration? YouTube, Cori Eichelberger. And need knitting tips? Instagram, iRockKnits. But then at the bottom, in small print, it says, Ravelry coupon code for a free pattern. And then there's a little code there. So if you find me at Rhinebeck, I'll give you a card. And you can get a free pattern from me. And I'm just hoping to kind of generate some teaching business. You know, everything shut down and we weren't teaching anymore. And I have to send these out to some of my local yarn stores in the mail to see if they're ready to start having me back. What am I wearing today? This is the Knit Cahoots sweater from the Minnesota 52 book without the owls on it. And it's a size or two too big for me. It's a sample size, but it is very cozy, and the corrugated ribbing is a lot of fun to have on there. Several people made that Cahoots sweater. And I just noticed that, you know, the Vikings game just got over and I'm wearing little purple and gold. So go team. We almost lost in the last 2 minutes. If you're a football fan, Kirk Cousins, who is our quarterback, said in an interview once, every football game comes down to the last 2 minutes. And that prophecy that he made has been so true for our team ever since I heard that. Every single game, we can either win it or lose it. Everything we do, we are never way ahead and we're never way behind. We always could do it in the last 2 minutes. And I'm just like, why did he even say that? So we almost lost it. We had 37 seconds to do it and kick a field goal. I have a recipe of the week this week. Let's get that out of the way first thing. Pumpkin bread. So I'm going to make pumpkin bread and share with a neighbor as soon as I get back. 3 cups of sugar, so it's going to be good. A cup of oil, 4 eggs, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, teaspoon of cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, 2/3 a cup of water, and a can of pumpkin. It makes 3 loaves. So 3 cups of sugar seems like a ton, but because you're using a whole can of pumpkin, it makes 3 full loaves of pumpkin bread. So I usually make 1, share 1, freeze 1. That's my plan with that. You could certainly substitute, sugar substitute. You could do part of it, honey, whatever. But it is so moist. It is just, and it's a dump recipe, right? Sugar, oil, eggs, dump them in the thing, add the water, the pumpkin, spices, you're done. Like, you could have it mixed up and poured in the pan in 5 minutes if you had everything out. Like, it's super quick. You add 3 1/3 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of baking soda at the end. You bake at 350 degrees for 1 hour. Yeah, just super simple, very easy. Maybe you already have your own favorite pumpkin bread recipe, but for those of you who don't, yeah, I don't love pumpkin. Like, I'm not a pumpkin spice person. Tea, pumpkin spice, the lattes, the coffee. Well, I don't drink coffee, but like, I don't crave that kind of thing, but these are delicious. These loaves, really good. I have some audiobooks to share, and one of the best things about going to South Dakota was that I got to talk about the book American Dirt to my dad and my brother. They both have read it since the last podcast when I shared it with them, and I said, get it and read it. And my dad said, I'm telling everybody about it. And then my brother said, I'm telling everybody about it. And so, that always makes you feel good when you recommend a book and people are like, yeah, it's a fascinating read. It is so interesting, and I highly recommend it. If you have not put that on your list, you need to. So I gave up on Ducks Newburyport. Nobody contacted me and said that it was worth 46 hours. I listened to, half an hour maybe, and I was like, I'm not into it. Like, it might get there, but it is a stream of consciousness. There's no punctuation in the book. Apparently. That's what I read online. So I'm thinking it might be better read on the page. The person was doing a good job, but it's in a person's head. It's their thought, a woman's thoughts about her family in her head. I just can't imagine that it's good enough to go on for 46 hours. And right now I didn't have 46 hours of uninterrupted kind of like day by day. It just didn't appeal to me. So I picked up several other books and finished them. I read The Thursday Murder Club, which was interesting, clever, British. Here's the premise. In a peaceful retirement village, 4 unlikely friends meet weekly in the jigsaw room to discuss unsolved crimes. Together, they call themselves the Thursday Murder Club. When a local developer is found dead with a mysterious photograph left next to the body, the Thursday Murder Club suddenly find themselves in the middle of their first live case. As the bodies begin to pile up, can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? It was 12 hours long, and it sounds more like Angela Lansbury than it is. It is not. It is well written. It is deep. It is thoughtful. It is like they get into it. It's not lighthearted. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's not a straight line to the murder, right? Like, it's very well done. It's a good mystery, good book. So I would definitely recommend that one. Then the next one I read was The Midnight Library, which is super popular right now. Like, everybody's reading it, and it was very good. Here's its premise. Somewhere out beyond the edge of the universe, there is a library that contains an infinite number of books, each one the story of another reality. One tells the story of your life as it is, along with another book for the other life you could have lived if you had made a different choice at any point in your life. While we are all wonder how our lives might have been, what if you had the chance to go to the library and see for yourself? Would any of these other lives, truly be better? Have you ever thought to yourself, what if I would have dated the other guy? What if I would have married the other man? What if I would have made a different choice of college? Like, what if, those types of choices in your life? Well, that's what happens to this Nora Seed. She goes to this midnight library and she gets to live all of the other lives. She gets to go and see and be inside of if she would have made, and she has a ton of regrets in her life and is thinking, what if? And it's fascinating to think about. It has really made me think about, like, gosh, what if you would have made a different choice? What path would that have taken you down? And I enjoyed the story so much that I didn't want her to quit living the other lives, right? She can pick one as she goes through them if she thinks that it will be more satisfying than the life she's in. And it's just really good. Very, very well done. And it ran how many hours here? Oh, come on. 9 hours. So it was 9 hours. So I got it done really quickly, like a few days, because it was that good and I didn't want to stop listening. So then I listened to Nomadland. I wanted to watch the movie because I hadn't seen it. And so I thought I really should do the book first. And if you're not aware, Nomadland came out, maybe the movie came out a year or so ago. It did win some awards. From the beet fields of North Dakota to the wilderness campgrounds of California to an Amazon warehouse in Texas, people who once might have kicked back to enjoy their sunset years are hard at work. Underwater on mortgages or finding that Social Security comes up short, they're hitting the road in astonishing numbers, forming a new community of nomads, RV and van-dwelling migrant laborers or work campers, building on her groundbreaking Harper's cover story, The End of Retirement. So the author had written, an article, and then it became, and she went on the road and lived with these people for like 3 years and off and on and interviewed tons of people. Then I watched the movie and I felt like, boy, I know so much more about it because I read the book. The movie is a little more superficial, and like she gets into all the details of how they move from one place to the other and where they work, and the stories of Amazon, how they work 18 miles, they walk 18 miles on concrete floors at Amazon in a shift, and the bending and the pain that their knees, their wrists from shooting the little tracker gun and carrying boxes, and it's eye-opening. So I would really recommend the book. If you watch the movie's very slow-moving, and she's fantastic. So Frances McDormand plays the lead character in the movie, and she's been in everything. She's just really good, and she's destitute and down, and I was unaware that there was a plant, U.S. gypsum plant in Empire, Nevada, that shut down in 2011, and it was a town made up of workers that all worked there. They all lived in the town, so it was a company town. I was completely unaware that was still, that company towns were still where people paid and lived all together and worked together. And then when that shut down, these people all lost their livelihood. There was nothing else, and they all dispersed. The town is a ghost town from what I could tell. And so she plays this main character whose husband then passes away, and so she's grieving, and then she's lost everything, and she just goes on the road in this camper van that she has made and lives amongst the nomads. So very informative, super interesting, highly recommend, especially if you've ever seen campers parked in the Walmart parking lot and thought to yourself, why are those people camping here? Like, why are they parked here overnight? It'll answer all those questions for you. And then I'm just finishing today Swede Hollow by Ola Larsmo and Tiina Nunnally for book club tomorrow. And Swede Hollow is a place in St. Paul where Swedish immigrants moved when they came to the U.S. in 1896-ish time frame it starts. And it's a story of a family who comes to New York and they try making it there, and then they eventually continue on to St. Paul, and you can still go over and visit that area and see Swede Hollow. And so it was picked for our local book club, and I was lucky that it was on audio. It's very well read, super interesting immigration story, what goes on, what happens to the families. If you are Swedish, I would highly recommend that you read it. If you're a Minneapolis resident or St. Paul, I would highly recommend Minnesota resident, because it really is the roots of who came and settled here and how those things happened, and it's a great story. So I would recommend that too. So gosh, 4 books this 2 weeks, and then I gave up on that 4 to 6 hour one. So I'm not going to do too much with the sweater of the week this week, but I had a sample knitter help me finish this sweater. This is the 3-in-1 sweater by Atelier Alpha that I have already shared on the podcast. I have another one, and the first one I made did not fit me well. I didn't make it big enough. It's wearable. It'd be even more wearable if I lost 20 pounds, and so I just wanted one bigger, and I had this yarn in my stash. This is all Madeline Tosh, and it's a fingering weight, and it's got that tri-colored bottom. I'll put a picture in. I just need to get buttons, but I had gotten it started, I don't even know how long ago. I literally found it in a bag that wasn't in other bags. A year or two ago, maybe. I think I was going to go to an event. Yeah, and I thought it's knitting in the round on the body, and so I got it going, and then I never was going to get it finished, and I'm so behind right now that I just thought I have a couple of sample knitters who I pay, and I thought if someone can get some of these things off the needles for me. It's the 3-in-1 sweater. I took a picture of it for my project page because I will take it with me when I teach sweaters, and so I put it on my project page with the notes of what the yarn is and everything, because I have that other one, and so I'll have 2 for people to try on when I teach the sweater class, and not one will be a bigger size. So I put it on the mannequin, and then today I was like, oh well, at least I should share it. I didn't finish it. So anyway, it turned out great. It fits much better. It's a bigger size. And it's wider on the bottom and longer, which is what I needed to do with the first one too. It wasn't long enough or wide enough, especially in the hips and rear end area. But if you are interested in this sweater, you can go back and find it in the previous episodes, because I did a whole talk on that particular sweater, and it's a fascinating construction, really interesting. I mean, the sleeves have 3 layers, and they all roll up, and the bottom has 3 diagonal layers, and yeah, so that's the sweater of the week. Now, I pre-recorded the hat of the week this week because I have a new pattern coming out, and hopefully by the time this goes live, it will be out on Ravelry. It is with my tech editor, a graphic layout person right now. All the photographs were finally done, and we sent it over, but it is going live, and I'm going to insert the little talk I did here. I am sharing a new design today, and I am super excited about this one. Several months ago, I reached out to Christina at Chelsea Yarns and told her that I had several design ideas, and I was looking for someone to do a yarn collaboration with, and she got back to me and she said, great, send me the designs. And so I did, and I knew probably right from the start which one she would pick, because if you know Christina, she is a well put together, classy lady, and I feel like this design is really reminiscent of her and her aesthetic. She loves pinks, and she's really into that pink and green camouflage right now, which is just lovely. But her yarns are exquisite, and this is the first design. This is the Christina hat. I named it after her, and it is a 1x1 ribbed hat using DK and mohair held double, and then just a few pearl beads are placed around the crown and the brim of the hat. I also did it up in a beanie style, so if you're not a flipped brim hat person, or you just don't want to do that much knitting because you have to do extra to do the brim, here's the beanie style. And I think the beads really show up well on the gray charcoal yarn. They're just little 8mm pearl beads. If you've never placed a bead before, it's super fun. I use the super floss method, which is to take a piece of floss that is like dental floss, but on one end it has like a little bit of a pipe cleaner feel, and so it holds your bead up close to where you want, and then there is kind of a stiff piece that you can stick through your stitches, and then you slide your bead up, put it on the stitch, and knit along on your merry way. Very simple. There is a video tutorial provided in the hat pattern, but I also knit it in a couple of other sizes and colors. So this is the adult large in this dusty blue. Can you see that lovely mohair on there? Just, oh, they're so soft. And just, I think they just look luxurious. And then, hopefully, I have 2 baby hats. So I knit a baby hat first, and then I remembered that my model, Joanna, who modeled for the Minnesota 52 book and did a lot of modeling for me over the next 2 years after that, got married 2 years ago and then had a baby in March. And she has baby Kennedy, and so I got in touch with Joanna and said, would you be willing to model my new Christina hat if I get a photo shoot set up? And I said I would really like Kennedy to be a part of it, and she was on board. So as a new mom, a working mom, an engineer, she's gonna bring Kennedy, and we're gonna do a little photo shoot with Kennedy. And by the time this goes live, I should have pictures to put in. I did knit it slightly bigger because she measured Kennedy's head at 17 inches. And so this one turns out to be about 15 before blocking. And then because of the 1x1 rib, they really stretch. So you can see that they look about the same, but I stretched this one to within an inch of its life to see how much give I could get on it. And then let it dry, and it is 20 stitches smaller than the bigger one, and it doesn't quite stretch to 15. So this would be more small baby, preemie, not 6, 8, 7 month old baby. That would be the small version that's literally in the pattern. But I'm really excited about this. Christina will be kitting them up. She will provide DK weight yarn and mohair, and then the beads for each hat. You do not place very many beads, so beading does slow you down, but you don't have to place very many. Like they're fairly spread out, and so it doesn't take too much time, and you can knit, a knit one, purl one hat. Most of you know how quickly you can get that done in a couple of days. I just think they'll be really fun for Christmas gifts for people, as well as just a new fun winter hat for warmth. You could certainly do it without the mohair. If you are not a fan of mohair, or if you have Angora or Suri alpaca, you could certainly use that. It works up at about a worsted weight gauge. Not quite. But that is all listed in the pattern. The numbers for the hat unblocked, and then the numbers for how far the hat could stretch, and the happy middle in between there. So if you want to just use DK and place beads with no mohair, that would be fine too. I have a couple of testers that have done that, and so their pictures will be out on Ravelry, and I'll be sharing those on Instagram as well. Well, since I recorded that piece, I have knit a couple more hats. I had to send all of the samples to Christina, as she's going to be at Cakapalooza on the Friday before Rhinebeck. And so if you're headed to Rhinebeck and you don't have tickets for Cakapalooza yet, they're a little expensive to get in. Later in the afternoon it gets cheaper, and I will be there in the afternoon, mid-afternoon maybe. That's when I bought my ticket for. But the hats will all be there on display, so you'll be able to see them, try them on. I knit myself one. So here is the Cori's hat, of course. And I knit this one out of yarn that I got on vacation. Super nice, lovely yarn, but it hold mohair double. So this is more of a heavy DK weight yarn. And then I got beads while I was on vacation, and they're just lovely. So I'll give you a little close-up of that one. And then I told Joanna once we took all the pictures that I would knit one a Kennedy hat. So I only had leftover gray, but Joanna and Kennedy both had on little gray shirts that day, so I thought, I don't think she'll mind. And then these are pink beads. I don't know that you're going to be able to tell because the light probably blows them out, but they're like pearlescent and they're pink. So the Christina hat is up and available as of Thursday for sure. I'm hoping it goes live Monday or Tuesday, just so that I can get that all done, send out my newsletter, give everybody the coupon code, and yeah, be able to move forward with getting ready for Rhinebeck, because having a pattern come out this week is also keeping me really busy. I had tons of testers knit it, so there'll be lots of project pages out on Ravelry, and I'll post pictures on Instagram for everyone to see. But yeah, I'm really excited about having a new pattern come out, and I'm hoping that it's really popular and a lot of you like it and want to buy it, because I have to pay some bills. I need to pay, not household bills. I'm fine. I just need to pay some design bills. I try to be self-supporting in my design business, and patterns cost me a couple $100s to, do. Sorry, husband and lawnmower guy interruption. But I used to do a lot more teaching. And so then if I had some patterns that didn't do as well, or I needed to pay those bills, this is a weird conversation to have with all of you. But then, I would have money in my PayPal account, and then money could come in and out and whatever. Well, I have 4 sock patterns coming out this fall, and I had to print books to take to Rhinebeck, and I had to print cards for Rhinebeck, and I would like to pay some on my trip. And then I have a cowl pattern coming out at the end of this month. I have a cowl or shawl pattern coming out next month, and a mitten pattern coming out next month, I think. So I've been paying some bills, and the patterns aren't out yet, right? So you just want to cover some things. So go buy the Christina Hat pattern for me, will you? So that I can just be self-sufficient in paying for everything up front. And it's not a pity party. Maybe I'll just delete all of that. Okay. Hey everyone, I just finished editing the podcast, and I forgot to tell you guys the biggest news of all. Kylie got the job. We are so thrilled. She will be a clerk with Judge Smith in the Minnesota Court of Appeals starting next August. So now she doesn't have to look for a job. She can just study for the bar, which she'll take in July, and she'll start there in August. So I just wanted to hop back in here and tell you all, and thank you for your thoughts and prayers on that. She's thrilled. We're thrilled. Yeah, so just wanted to give everybody the heads up. Tips and tricks. Trick number 1. I was blocking a cowl the other day. Do you know how well this worked? I had these in the back cabinet for like craft projects. If sometimes, preschools, elementary schools, they'll ask for toilet paper rolls. They'll ask for, oatmeal containers, whatever. And I had these, and I put them like this, and I put the cowl around it. No side seams, no little fold marks. It worked so slick to just keep these and wet my cowl and put it around the outside. So I thought, I'm going to set that on the dining room table and share with everyone. Any round container would work, but boy, did that work slick. So if you've got, cowls, I used to use laundry jugs, but they're not quite tall enough and round enough, which leads me into my next tip or trick. I don't know how many of you have ever seen Earth Breeze washer sheets, but we have been using Earth Breeze washer sheets at our house, and they are literally soap in a sheet. So they come in a small cardboard envelope, and you get 60 of them. And you don't have to measure anything. You throw it in your washing machine, and it dissolves. And the packaging is minimal. It's cardboard. It's much, it's much better for the environment. It's much better for our world. And so if you get the subscription, which means they send you one every time, monthly or whatever. And I have delayed mine because we don't wash a lot of clothes at my house. Like, I don't have kids here anymore. And so I didn't need it as often. And I just delay it by 2 weeks. I get an email and I just delay it. And so you pay $12 for 60 sheets. I think it's a little more if you don't want to do the subscription, and it's a cancel anytime. So why wouldn't you? But I'm willing to pay a little more in order to help the world, help the environment. I also am a big believer that corporations are polluting much more than I am, and that plastic straws are not going to save our world. We're going to need to do more. But this is also more convenient. They just lay on the dryer. Just slick. So Earth Breeze, wash your sheets. And there are other companies out there. They might have better deals. These are cleaning our clothes fine. Wash in cold water, people. If you're not washing in cold water, that's also takes more power and hurts our environment more to use hot water. And there isn't, unless you are like a filthy, dirty clothing person, right? Like, you do not need to be using hot water. Like, my husband thinks sometimes that he should use hot water. And I'm like, nope, we're washing in cold around here. So I'll get off that soapbox. Then next, tip or trick, has nothing to do with knitting. I got a new cover for my iPhone. My chiropractor developed a blue light cover for phones, iPads, computers, and it's being sold by Eyesafe. And some school systems are buying them now because they're finding that kids are spending so much time on screens that their eyes are getting damaged, and it also damages your brains. It is not good for us to be in front of, and some people wear the glasses, right? For protection, they wear blue light glasses, like if you're in front of a screen all day, and you should be. But it's hard to put your glasses on every time you look at your phone, right? So what my chiropractor noticed is that he works some with the University of Minnesota football team at the athletics program. It's a performance clinic where I go. And he would adjust kids, do massage, get them all worked out. And then they would pick up their phones and walk away, and he would retest them using reflexology, and all of his stuff would be gone. Like, it really affects our bodies and our brains. It's a little woo-woo. But if you're interested, like if you have a kid who's on the computer all the time, if you're on the computer, if you're on your phone all the time for work, my iPad, the cover is just just the plastic glass cover that you put on the front. It was $39.99 for the phone, and it's $49.99 for the iPad. And then they have all the different sizes, right? You go in and you pick out which one you have, and then they just ship it to you. It's all online, Eyesafe. And you go to products on the top screen. And they're still developing more. They're doing more and more with it. But he told me 2 times ago when I was in seeing him that several school districts are investing because they're finding that it's causing problems. And a lot of kids get that little eyelid flicker thing, the eyeball flicker. It's just, we're going to find 20 years down the line that we've done some damage because we just weren't careful. So I thought, you know what? I just bought it. I got it. I had one before. I got a new phone. I hadn't replaced it. I went in. It reminded me because he's got a little poster in there. And I was like, oh, I never put that on my phone. And he's like, well, you need to get one. I was like, okay. So then I bought it. And I thought I should mention that too. Then I was looking at something the other day. I think I was with Kylie. Where was I? And there was a comment on what does fingering weight mean? Why is it called fingering? And I was like, good point. Why is it called fingering? And for that matter, where did, Worsted and Aaron and all that come from, right? Like, what's the origination story of that kind of stuff? But I just Googled And Oddball Geek came up with, the origin of the term fingering is derived from fingram, F-I-N-G-R-A-M, from the French fin grain, which means fine grain. In relation to yarn, this would imply that it is a more fine weight of yarn. And I was like, oh, I learned something new. So I'll probably look up the other ones too, but I thought, well, I'll share that with you. Maybe you all knew that, but it doesn't have anything to do with fingers. It has to do with fine grains. You know, there's always that little fingering joke, kind of sexual innuendo that goes on out there about light fingering and heavy fingering, and it's naughty, but has nothing to do with that, just so you know. Okay, and then lastly, I don't know that I shared this, and maybe I did, and if I did, I couldn't go through all the old show notes. I look at my Cori Stories topics, and I don't think I used it as a Cori Stories, but anyway, there are two women in North Dakota who, now that I'm saying this, I'm sure I talked about it, but they transformed a North Dakota old brick giant schoolhouse and turned it into a wool house. And it's called Gnome Schoolhouse, N-O-M-E. And it opened this fall, and they had their first wedding, and you can have events there, and they're going to have fiber events and knitting related events and things like that. And it's fascinating. So I linked the video, which I probably linked before, but I've been following them on Instagram. So you can go to Gnome Schoolhouse, N-O-M-E Schoolhouse. That's where it's located. And follow them and look and see what events they might be coming up. One of them is an expert felter, like making figurines, felted stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then they have one of them has like a mill, maybe a small mill processing something. Anyway, and I just thought, oh, I have this little printout that I did in my folder, and I thought, why would you have not moved that out of the folder if you talked about it? Because they've had several news stations have done big articles on them. It took years for them to transform this old schoolhouse. And good on those two ladies, right? Yeah, what fun would it be to have and there's some rooms you can stay in there. It's beautiful. They really did a nice job, and it's, big brick facade with brand new windows, and yeah, they've redone the grounds, and they're beautiful. So yeah, I just thought, well, I'm going to share that. Okay, a couple things I have to tell you. I have a new book cover for the Knit Words book. I was never happy with the first cover. It just didn't scream Cori, and I really wanted it to. And so I reached out to a friend who I'd worked with before in the past, and she gave me the name of someone who does smaller projects like this, and she came up with a new cover, a new color, and we just did a better job. So when I reprinted for Rhinebeck, I have a new cover on the book, and I just like it so much better. 8 Designs by Cori Eichelberger. It's got my little logo up here. It's got this little orange, orange and raspberry, totally my thing. It totally coordinates now with my new card. So a little branding, but come see me at Rhinebeck, will you? I'm a little nervous that I won't sell any books or that it won't be busy. And then I'm speaking on Sunday morning on Book Row. I'm doing a little half-hour talk Sunday morning first thing. And, it's always quieter on Sunday, and I don't know how many people will show up, and I don't want to have nobody be there. So if you're going to Rhinebeck, help a girl out, will you? That would be nice. Okay. Are you watching Ted Lasso? Oh my goodness, we just love it. It's so good. It's worth the $5.99, $7.99 one monthly subscription to watch it on Apple TV. If you can get Apple TV, I'm assuming you could watch it on a computer or an iPad for sure. But it's just so good. It's heartwarming. Those 2 episodes were a little weird. I did talk to a friend who was like, oh, I thought they were great, but when they originally did them, they were supposed to be 10 episodes, and then Apple was like, this is so popular, we want you to do 12. And so they had to insert 2 episodes that weren't originally in the 10. So when you get halfway through season 2, there are 2 in there that you're kind of like, what? Wait a second. This isn't the same. I don't even know if they use the same director. I mean, it's the same actors, but You'll just tell. You can tell. If you've been watching it and you had that in the back of your head, that's why. I went out and Googled it because my husband was like, why are they just following the assistant coach this whole episode? And why is he, he goes on a bender and he has a bad day and it's just like it really didn't relate to they didn't have a lot of team stuff. There was the other characters weren't even in it. It was very interesting. So, but if you haven't seen it, and then I started watching the morning show. Have you guys seen that? Wow, that's really fascinating. It's not based on Matt Lauer. It's totally based on Matt Lauer. But it's based on the book, The Morning Show, which is all about all the different morning shows and how cutthroat it is and the business and the ratings and how people get cut all the time because they're not likable enough and they're just constantly churning through personalities and changing stuff up to try to get to be number one and, all those morning shows. So there was a book. And then Jennifer Aniston is the executive producer for this. And then it's Reese Witherspoon. And there's a whole bunch of people in it that you'll recognize. But I'm maybe partway into season 2. And I thought, I wish someone would have told me about it. Like, it came out a year ago. Now it's on season 2. And I don't remember people talking about it. It's also on Apple TV. So I thought, well, I'm going to mention those things. What should you knit to? Ted Lasso and The Morning Show. Because it's really, really well done. Very interesting. Okay, the Cori Stories this week is one from a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to tell it now anyway. I have a internet friend named Laura. Laura, hi. Podcast viewer who reached out when I was ill and said, hey, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And I had typed an email to my knitting group, letting them know where I was at in my journey at the time. And so I copied it and pasted it and sent it to her. And it was like miles long. It was ridiculous how much I sent her, how much information. And then after I sent it, I was like, I don't know you well enough. You don't know me well enough probably for me to be sharing all of that. But she was very kind. And she's like, oh, I've just been thinking about you. And we are traveling across the state of South Dakota. So I was thinking about you. And I was like, they were headed to Colorado via the Badlands, via Rapid City. I think this happened, beginning of September, middle of September kind of thing, right? Yeah. And I said, if you go through the middle of South Dakota, you should stop at Al's Oasis, right? Chamberlain, South Dakota is on the river, and the river is huge. There's a dam. If you're unaware, South Dakota is not much of a state as far as like things to see. Sioux Falls is in one corner on the right when you look at the map, and Rapid City is in the other. And there's not much in between, right? And it's an hours and hours and hours drive. And it's flat, flat, flat. And it's farmland, mostly. Grazing, lots of cattle grazing, some crops. But halfway, the halfway point is Chamberlain. And that's where the river runs. And Pierce, South Dakota, which I've talked about before, is in the middle of North America. It's the middle of North America. And that's north, in northern South Dakota. But when you go through, it was kind of always a rite of passage to stop at Al's Oasis, which was like a trading post type of place, right? But they have big outside dinosaurs for kids to climb on, have your picture taken next to. And there are, there are different, there's like a gift shop, and then they have, it's like a truck stop. It's like a big truck stop. And then after I said it, I thought, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't have told someone who doesn't have the childhood memory that I have to stop at Al's Oasis. And she's like, well, maybe on the way back, But then I got back to her. I'm like, like this is just a childhood memory for me, and maybe not. Maybe I haven't been since Kylie was little. So, it could have been 15 years maybe. It could have completely changed. But they stopped on their way. They saw it. She's like, Cori told her husband, we have to stop here. And you get like a 5-cent cup of coffee, and they have pie. There are not many places in the world that you can go anymore where you can order a piece of pie, right? The Baker's Square that we had here for years and years and years closed. And you just can't go in and get a slice of pie. And then they have hot sandwiches, right? Do you guys know what I mean by the Blue Plate special, where you used to get a hot sandwich? So hot turkey sandwich, hot roast beef sandwich, mashed potatoes, white bread, gravy, meat. And so she sent me pictures, which I'm going to put in here, of Al's Oasis and the menu and the cup of coffee and the sandwiches. Laura, it totally made my day. She knows this. I've told her this. And she's like, I'm so happy you made the recommendation. Like, we drove like 500 miles today, and like, it is not a place that if you saw it along the road, it's not like Wall Drug, where everybody stops at Wall Drug, which Wall Drug is just a tourist trap, right? But it's the next place to stop along the road of all of your hours of driving across South Dakota, is to stop at Wall Drug, and they have, lots of publicity and signs, and you hardly feel like you can drive by without stopping, because you've been inundated with Wall Drug. It's 7 miles away, it's 6.5 miles away, it's 6, like, it's like that. It's just every billboard is Wall Drug. And she said that they hadn't been in a number of years, and they're going to stay in Chamberlain on the way home. And then they took the pie to go because the food was so good. They liked the food a lot. And I think she said she had chicken salad, and her husband had the hot sandwich. I'm not sure. Anyway. And so they took the pie to go, and she said it was delicious. The filling wasn't too sweet, and it was great. And then I said, all I remembered is stopping there. We got to get out of the car as kids. We got to run around, right? When Kylie was an infant, maybe Kylie was 2 or 3, when my whole family traveled to Rapid City, and we drove to the Crazy Horse Monument, and we hiked up and stood on the arm of the Crazy Horse Monument, which is still not done, and it was miles. And I remember Ross and my brother carried Taylor and Kylie, cousins, on their backs in those backpack things. So they were little enough to not be able to walk. I don't know. It was 2 or 3 miles out to the monument from where you parked, and then you had to hike up, and then you got to go up and stand on it and look out over the kind of the Badland area, and then you had to come down and hike back. And that's the last time that we've been out that way that I can think of. Anyway, so Laura went to Al's Oasis, and then on their way back, they stopped again because they're like, 5-cent cup of coffee, and there's a gift shop. You can stretch your legs. It's a big, nice. So for all of you traveling to see, Mount Rushmore, because that's the only reason people go to South Dakota, because Sioux Falls is the biggest city, which is where I grew up. It's the biggest city in South Dakota, but it's on the complete opposite side of the state from Rapid City and the Badlands. And there's a lot of things to see out there. Evans Plunge was a childhood thing. There are hot springs in the Badlands, and then they built this Evans Plunge on top of the hot springs, the creek that runs through. And so they brought in, rock and built a concrete pool, and then there was this giant slide, which we have slide parks now, but back in the day, and you would come down the slide, it was just and you would just skim across the water just for blocks, and then they had rings that you could swing out into the hot so that's Evans Plunge, which is south of Rapid. We went out, we skied in the Rapid City area, we went out for events, because in Sioux Falls and Rapid City being the kind of the next biggest town, you had to play those teams all the time. So you took trips across the state, year after year. But Laura sent me pictures on their way back, and to get off the I-90, which is what I was on this week when I went to South Dakota. So I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, I'm on I-90, and I could just keep going and go to Chamberlain and go to Al's Oasis and have some pie like Laura and her husband. And her husband must have been like, who is this woman that is telling you to stop? So I thought, I'm just going to share with everybody. It's kind of a childhood memory of somewhere you went and ate. And I'm assuming that a lot of you have memories of places that you ate as a child, or things that you went to, 50 years ago that are either there or no longer there. And wouldn't it be nice to go back and visit? As I was driving back from Brookings, my first 2 years of teaching I did in Edgerton, Minnesota, and I was about 35 miles north of there. And I thought, should I drive down and drive through the town? And I was just too tired. But I would love to go back to that town. I haven't been back in years, and it would be fun to go back to that tiny little town and see the school that I did my first 2 years of teaching in. So just doing some reminiscing and thought I would share that. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you always for joining me. I really appreciate all of you that are out there and viewing, and I love your comments. I'm reading all the comments. I'm still fatigued every day. I'm more tired than I should be. So I'm going to talk to the doctor about that on Wednesday. And I can't stay on one of the 2 medications I'm taking long term. So we have to talk through that. The other one I think I can stay on, and maybe that will help. But the cough is gone. I hope that all of you have noticed that the cough is gone. The morning retching is gone. I just am a little nauseous, but I'm still having trouble with my tummy. We'll just leave it at that. All day and mostly in the mornings. But then I'm able to function after that. And so come see me at Rhinebeck if you can. I hope you're all doing well. Come in for your hug. Many of you are still in kind of lockdown situations, feeling like you can't go out and we shouldn't be, seeing people, and still being very careful. And now we're going into flu season, and they're saying that people are more sick. The more people are going out, they're more sick with other things. And they said that cancer screenings went way down, right? People weren't doing their cancer screening stuff. So if you haven't done your mammogram, if you haven't done your, pap smear, your things that you need to do, men and women, we need to stay on top of that stuff. Go make your appointment today, because I want you all to stay around for a long time and be there. But I'm just glad that I get to still be back talking to you guys every 2 weeks. I'm glad I'm feeling well enough to do this on the regular, and I'm going to be thankful for my blessings in that. Until next time, keep it colorful, keep your fork, no green bananas, buy the gravy. You'll never regret ripping back. I love you all. Bye.